All right, let's jump right into today's explainer and step straight back in time. I want you to picture a completely peaceful, untouched prehistoric landscape. We're talking vast open grasslands, dense ancient forests, winding rivers, the whole works. Now, imagine a small group of human hunter-gatherers just going about their daily routine. They're out searching for food, totally exposed to the elements. Everything is calm, it's routine, it's just a totally normal day. But, as we know in the ancient world, normal could turn incredibly deadly in literally a matter of minutes. And it all starts with this incredibly subtle shift in the environment. It doesn't begin with some massive Hollywood-style thunderclap. It actually starts with absence. The birds, which are usually this constant noisy backdrop, just suddenly vanish. Complete eerie silence falls over the entire forest. Then, you start seeing the larger wild animals shifting, moving really purposefully towards safer, higher ground. This sudden drop to total silence, that's nature's ultimate alarm bell, and it immediately cranks up the suspense. You just know something terrifying is coming. Watch how insanely fast this danger ramps up. You have to remember, ancient humans had absolutely zero modern weather forecasting. No apps, no sirens, no meteorologists. Tuning into these rapid natural warning signs was literally their only defense. Within just 1 minute, the birds are gone. At 10 minutes, the animals fleeing totally confirms their worst fears. Give it 30 minutes, and the sky is growing dark with thick, heavy storm clouds gathering in the distance. And by the 1-hour mark, powerful winds are violently shaking the trees, whipping up blinding dust and tearing leaves right off the branches. So it hits them. They realize with absolute certainty that something massive is about to drop right on top of them. And they are completely vulnerable. There are no concrete buildings to hide in, no phones to call for a rescue. They are entirely on their own out there, and they have to make split-second life-or-death decisions. Seriously, how do you survive when the sky itself looks like it's falling and your only backup is the handful of people standing right next to you? Well, panic is a luxury they simply cannot afford. Instead, they kick right into this rapid, highly prioritized survival protocol. Step 1, grab the kids and keep them tight. Step 2, grab whatever food and stone tools you have, because that's your livelihood. Step 3, and this is absolutely crucial, secure the fire-making materials. We'll get into why that's their most prized possession in a second. And finally, step 4, find natural shelter before the sky opens up. It's a literal race against the clock, as the thunder turns into this deafening roar and lightning just starts ripping across the dark sky. And then, the storm completely unleashes. Sudden, heavy rain just slams into them. Imagine the sheer physical toll this takes on a person. The wind turns incredibly powerful, whipping against them so hard that just walking upright is a massive struggle. They're pushing through blinding rain, thick mud, and howling winds, desperately trying to get to a safe haven, all while lugging their children and these heavy stone tools. It is just an absolutely brutal physical battle against nature. But they push through, and finally, they spot it. A natural cave, this deep, rocky overhang that can offer a sliver of temporary protection. The whole group rushes inside, huddling together. And talk about cutting it close. They make it just as the storm outside severely intensifies. Looking out from that cave entrance, it's just heavy sheets of rain, massive trees bending backwards under the wind, and huge branches snapping like twigs in the dark. Now, right when they think they can finally catch their breath, disaster strikes. A freak gust of wind or maybe a leak in the overhang brings the rain straight down onto their hearth. And just like that, their tiny, precious flame is gone. It goes completely out. Now, a wet fire might seem like a minor annoyance to us today, but in this prehistoric reality, losing that flame completely changes the rules of the night. It instantly upgrades this from waiting out a storm to a true immediate emergency. Because losing that fire was a catastrophic blow. Our ancient ancestors absolutely depended on it for survival. Think about the contrast here. With fire, you have warmth against freezing rain, you have light to actually see your surroundings, you can cook, and most importantly, protection. Fire keeps the predators away. Without it, you are exposed to freezing temperatures, entirely blind in a pitch-black cave, and completely vulnerable to whatever else is hunting out there in the dark. So how do they react? They don't just sit down and give up. They immediately pivot. They grab whatever dry tinder they have left, huddling over it, literally using their own bodies to block the moisture in the air. Then, working perfectly in sync, they start frantically trying to spark friction with their tools.
You can feel the tension, right? It's incredibly frustrating in that damp air, but through sheer grit and determination, they manage to spark a new fire deeper inside the shelter. The light flares back up, and with it, a tiny bit of hope.
But nature is just relentless. Because of that torrential rain pounding the earth outside, suddenly a thick stream of water starts rushing directly into their sanctuary. The ground is completely saturated, and this runoff is heading straight for their newly restarted fire and their dry sleeping spots. So once again, the group is forced into an immediate, coordinated reaction to save themselves. Beating this new threat requires everyone working together like a well-oiled machine. They're frantically hauling heavy stones to create a channel to redirect the water. They're throwing down protective branches and literally packing those barriers with thick mud to create a watertight seal. And while all this heavy labor is happening, specific adults are tasked with physically shielding the children, making sure they stay totally dry and out of the chaos. It's a prehistoric masterclass in community crisis management. Now, as this storm rages on for hours, a super chilling realization starts to creep in. They are definitely not the only ones trying to escape the weather tonight. Wild animals are also desperately searching for shelter, which brings up a terrifying thought. Who is watching the dark? The suspense right here is just incredible. The whole group is wide awake, using those terrifying seconds of absolute silence between the massive thunderclaps to just strain their ears, listening for the sound of a predator sneaking into their cave. And then the tension spikes all over again with this deafening crash. A massive tree, or maybe a giant branch, collapses right near the entrance of their shelter. It is such a violent reminder that they aren't just hiding from rain and animals. The environment itself is actively hazardous. The very structure around them is failing, creating yet another terrifyingly dangerous moment for the group. Because of the spray from that fallen tree and the violently shifting winds, the front of the shelter becomes totally drenched and unsafe. This forces the group into a tactical retreat. They shuffle even deeper into the belly of the cave, packing themselves incredibly tightly together. They stay as a single, unified group, fiercely guarding that tiny flame, totally isolated from the absolute chaos raging outside, just praying for a break in the weather. And that break takes a long, agonizing time. It takes 6 grueling hours before this relentless storm finally starts to lose its punch. Around hour 7, that deafening roar outside finally quiets down into a manageable drizzle. And then, at hour 8, the ultimate reward. Morning actually arrives. Warm beams of sunlight finally pierce through the darkness, lighting up the battered landscape right outside their cave. The survivors carefully step out of the shelter and they wake up to a world that looks like a war zone. The devastation is everywhere. Massive fallen trees are completely blocking their usual hunting routes. The ground is just deeply flooded, thick mud. The plants they rely on for foraging are heavily damaged, and tragically, some of the food and materials they brought with them have been completely destroyed by the water. But here's the thing about the prehistoric world. There is no time for a victory lap. Instead of just celebrating that they didn't die, the group immediately gets back to work. Priority number 1, head count. They check on each other to make absolutely sure every single member survived the night. Once everyone is accounted for, they go right into searching for dry wood for a new fire and starting the hard work of repairing their temporary shelter. Survival is a full-time job. So if you take away one crucial thing from this explainer, let it be this. Prehistoric humans had absolutely no control over these storms and no modern tech to bail them out. Their survival came down entirely to a very specific set of skills. We're talking a deep, almost instinctual observation of nature, incredibly intense, selfless cooperation within their tribe, and the ability to make rapid, decisive actions to find shelter and keep that fire alive against all odds. We leave our small group standing together as the sun finally rises, casting light over this muddy, broken landscape. It's a really powerful image, isn't it? Because for them, a severe storm wasn't just a canceled plan or a minor inconvenience, it was a literal fight for their lives. And making it to that next sunrise was a massive, hard-fought victory. It definitely makes you wonder, as we sit in our comfortable, climate-controlled homes today, what modern comforts are we totally taking for granted? Thanks for exploring this incredible scenario with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.